My deadlift never made any progress on those generic intermediate strength training programs, just like the one you're using right now. They all had me deadlifting once or maybe twice a week. All of the sets were super hard, really heavy, close to failure, like those really slow, grindy reps. And because of that, my lower back was smoked all the time, and I never really made much progress. Another thing that really held me back was there was no like targeted deadlift accessory work. So my technique was really inconsistent. Like one week I felt like I was really good at deadlifting, and the next week it was like I forgot how to do the movement. Because of that, my deadlift got stuck around the 4 to 5 plate mark for like literally years, and I failed 5 plates like 10 times in the gym, and it was super frustrating. Nowadays, I've been able to deadlift 300 kilos. I can deadlift 240, 250, 260 on my secondary days, 4 reps, and I've been able to help loads of people to do the same. If you would like to see exactly how to set this up in a training program, click the top link in the description and you'll see 3, 4, and 5 day options for you. So in this video, I'm going to walk through my top 5 deadlift accessories and give you a rundown of why you might include them in a program. So number 1 is the paused deadlift. Some of you might have heard of this one already. Basically, the paused deadlift involves pausing on the way up at some point. Usually I'll do it like 1 inch off the ground, or it might be like just below the knees or something. So the most common one is just off the floor. So basically what you would do, and I'll show an example on screen, you would set up for your deadlift as normal. Then as soon as the bar leaves the floor, so like literally as soon as it breaks off the floor, you would pause for like a 1 or 2 second pause. Now, the point of this, basically, the main reason that I would implement them is for technique and positioning. So I can tell you how to improve your deadlift technique, and I can give you cues and stuff like that, or I can have you watch videos. But honestly, the easiest way to have you improve your technique is just to force you to do it yourself. So imagine if you use a pause deadlift, it's very hard to pause in a bad position. If you break the bar off the floor and it's like forward of your midfoot and it's out in front of you, straight away you're going to realize because it's going to be super hard, and then you're going to correct and you're going to get the bar closer to you. And it just kind of brings your attention automatically to your technique, and you will naturally just organize your body in the best position to produce the most force, if that makes sense. So rather than me telling you like pull the bar from over the middle of the foot, the pause will just kind of force you to do it because you won't be able to hold the bar out in front of you. Now, you can also use a pause just below the knee as well. I don't use these as much, but if your position is pretty good and you're struggling with lockout, so let's say you're always getting the bar to your knees and then you fail to lock it out, I might use a pause deadlift just below the knee so that we can build a little bit of isometric strength in that position of weakness, okay? And that could be beneficial. So if you wanted to add these into your program, I would recommend that you do them on the lower rep ranges, so probably like 1 to 5 reps. 5 is probably as high as I would go. Otherwise, the set starts to get really long. The weight on the bar is too light to really be effective and everything. So 1 to 5 reps, I usually use a top set back off approach. So if you're already deadlifting once a week, I would add in a pause deadlift on the secondary day. I would do some kind of top set of like 1 to 5 reps and then do some back offs in the like 60 to 75% range for sets of like 4 to 6 reps, okay? So number 2 deadlift accessory is the cluster deadlift. Some of you may or may have not heard of these. Basically, a cluster deadlift is you're chunking the set down into clusters. So rather than doing like a full set of 5 reps where you just do rep, 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 you break them down into singles or maybe even doubles or something like that. The most common way I'll do them is I'll have some kind of like rep target. So maybe we're doing like 10 singles, okay? And then you would do them cluster style. The way that you do these cluster deadlifts is basically that you'll do a rep, then you step away from the bar, you might have a short rest period, and then you go through your setup again and you do the next rep, okay? So sometimes I'll do like a full reset where we go through the entire like deadlift setup again. Other times I'll just step away from the bar and then literally do the next rep right away. Now, the point of doing cluster deadlifts is mostly for skill practice with singles. So I really like using these for people who aren't very confident at pulling heavy singles. They get a bit nervous, they hesitate down there at the bottom. Or if you're like a strength athlete and you want to get really good at doing 1 rep maxes, or you want to go compete. Because imagine if you're doing like 10 singles in a training session, you're going to feel super confident going into your next deadlift day because you've just pulled a bunch of singles. And each single is basically like an opportunity to improve on the next one. And you'll often find that you do single number 1, then on number 2, you might tweak something. You might like bring your feet a bit closer, or you might change your stance to the bar, something like that, right? And you just get more and more confident each time. And I found that for myself, like I was often hesitating on heavy deadlifts down there at the bottom. I was like overthinking and just staying there way too long. Cluster deadlifts really helped me to just kind of go do it, just hit the single, 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 and just get over that kind of hesitation in my head. So the way I would program these cluster deadlifts, again, if you're deadlifting once a week, cluster deadlifts I would add in on a secondary day, and I would use one of two main setups. So we can either use a rep target approach where we have like 10 singles we're going to hit, right? So we're going to do 5 singles at 80%, then we're going to do 5 singles at 70%. So you do the first 5 singles, you approach the bar, you do a rep, you walk away, maybe you have a short rest period like 5-10 seconds, do the next rep. Once all 5 reps are complete, we're going to drop down to 70% of your estimated 1 rep max, repeat the process and do the next 5 reps. An alternative way you could do them, instead of just doing like a fixed rep target of singles, is you can also do like ascending sets. So sometimes I'll program people like 1 set of 3 at RPE 5, RPE 6, RPE 7. So basically it's a 3x3 and the weight gets heavier each time. And we're basically breaking those triples up into singles. So you do the first set of 3, you do 1 rep, rest, 1 rep, rest, 1 rep, rest, add a little bit of weight to the bar, you do the next triple, repeat the process and do the next one, okay? So you can either do rep target singles or triples, doubles, whatever you might like. It just depends on the purpose. So if you're kind of wondering at this point, like how do I fit this stuff into a program and everything like that, top link in the description, there's a few training programs like 3, 4, 5 day options, and they will incorporate some of these ideas. The next one, number 3, my third favorite deadlift accessory, is the Romanian deadlift. So this one is pretty simple. Most of you have probably done this one already. And basically, you're going to deadlift the bar off the ground as normal. I don't recommend that you take it out of the rack and then do the reps, just because I think positioning gets sacrificed that way a little bit, and then people tend to load it up way too heavy because they think, oh, if I can take this weight out of the rack, I can do it with good form. I'd prefer you to just deadlift it off the floor and do them properly. So for the Romanian deadlift, 2 main cues I would give you when doing these is to not allow the knees to travel forward or to bend too much. So that's cue number 1. Cue number 2 is to keep the hips nice and high. We want the hips high so that we get a lot of hip flexion and extension, because we really want to train the glutes, hamstrings here, and the back muscles as well. We don't want it turning into like just a regular deadlift where we're bending the knees a ton and stuff like that. So don't let the knees travel forward or bend too much, and keep the hips high. Basically, you're going to slide the bar down your shins until it's probably like mid-shin height, and then we're going to come back up to lockout, and I'll show an example on screen. Now, I like Romanian deadlifts because they are a very good teaching tool for helping someone keep their back in extension. So a lot of intermediate lifters, when they deadlift, they have no idea what position their back's in, and they'll be pulling like with a ton of like upper back rounding and stuff like that. And I'm not here to say it's dangerous, but it's probably not very efficient, because when you're super rounded over, as you can imagine, when you get to the top of the lift, you've then got to uncoil your spine to stand up and lock out, and it makes the lift much harder. So Romanian deadlifts can be a great teaching tool to help people keep their back nice and flat. I'll also sometimes add in like a pause at the bottom of the rep, or maybe even a slow tempo on the way down, just to kind of further exaggerate that and get a bit of weight off the bar to manage fatigue. So if you wanted to add Romanian deadlifts in, I think these are a great way to bridge you from like once a week deadlifting up to twice. So if you currently pull once a week, you've always pulled once a week, and you think, oh, like I can't recover from twice a week deadlifting, that's way too hard, have your secondary deadlift day as a Romanian deadlift. It's going to be much lighter, much less fatiguing. I would recommend that you do it for about 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps. I have this weird habit of programming RDLs for like sets of 7 for some reason. They just seem to be a nice in-between, and they seem to work really well. So I would do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps at RPE like 5 to 8, start the block out around RPE 5, and then titrate it up to around RPE 8, adding weight week after week, okay? Deadlift variation number 4 is the opposite stance deadlift. So if you're a conventional deadlifter, this would be sumo. If you're a sumo puller, it would be conventional. It could even be a trap bar deadlift if you wanted a bit more variation. So depending on the variation you choose, obviously the technique is going to differ and stuff like that. And I'm actually thinking of putting together some tutorials for like conventional and stuff like that to help you out. But essentially, like, conventional is going to be a bit more hip dominant. It's going to train like the glutes, the hamstrings, the back a little bit more. Sumo is probably going to be a little bit more quad biased because there's a bit more knee flexion. It's going to train the adductors a little bit more. And for most people, maybe a little bit more stress on the back. And then the trap bar deadlift is probably somewhere in between, depending on how you do it. So kind of consider that when you're selecting which one that you'd like to add in the program. But basically, the main benefit to these is I think overall it's just a good idea to train lots of qualities and to get good in lots of positions. And for example, if you're a conventional puller and your sumo is terrible like me, then it might be beneficial to add sumo in sometimes, because if you can bring that weak point up, you can just develop a new skill, you can improve your range of motion, build up some muscles that don't get trained as much by conventional. I think it can be beneficial for building your conventional strength, and vice versa, and same with the other variations. Sumo can be good as well for people who experience lower back pain doing conventional. Same with trap bar as well, to be honest, because it's a little bit more upright torso position. It might feel a little bit safer on your back for you. So have a play around and see which one suits you best. If you wanted to add it into the program, again, if you're deadlifting once a week, I would put one of these on a secondary day. I would probably do it in a period where training is a bit less specific. So what I mean by that is, if you're like really focused right now on PR on your deadlift, hitting like 1 rep maxes and stuff like that, I probably would do something a bit more specific, like a pulse deadlift or something like that. But if right now you're just trying to build a base, get some volume in, build some muscle, then I would do an opposite stance deadlift on your secondary deadlift day. Again, I would use a top set back off approach, top set of like 1 to 5 reps, RPE 5 to 9, which is about 78 to 93% of a 1 rep max. And then I would do sets of 4 to 6 reps at 60 to 75% of your max, okay? Nice way to have a 2 times a week setup. So the final deadlift variation, number 5, and this one might be a new one too, you might have never heard of this one before, is the heels elevated Camperini deadlift. So this one is a bit of a random one. My coach gave me this one because I was rehabbing a back injury. So I'll show an example on screen. Basically, the way you do it, you're going to elevate your heel on a plate or a slant board or something like that. And then we're going to basically do a modified deadlift holding a kettlebell or a dumbbell. And basically, you're going to hold the weight in the opposite side to the leg you're training. So if I'm training my left leg, I'm going to hold it on the right side, and I'm going to kind of twist the torso a little bit towards the leg I'm training, okay? So you'd kind of have the nose over like the big toe of the side you're training, if that makes sense. Now, basically, the reason for using these is I think they are a great teaching tool and a great way to ease someone who's a little bit scared of deadlifting heavy into the movement, because it's a nice like low stress, lower load variant that you can just add in. It's much lighter, so you're not going to be as scared to kind of load it up. And it's a really nice way to rehab back injuries as well, because like I said, it's a bit more range of motion. Having the heels elevated, for me anyway, took a bit of pressure off the lower back. It really encouraged me to like use this hip hinge pattern and actually use my quads as well. And I actually still keep these in because I find that it really helps me to kind of connect with my quads and to cue myself to use leg drive, so that I'm actually involving my quads in the lift and I'm not just like hip hinging it up and doing like a stiff leg deadlift type thing. I actually get to use my legs in the movement as well. So yeah, I'm going to show an example on screen so you can see exactly how to do it. If you wanted to program these in, the way I would do it is, if you're not currently deadlifting and you're one of those guys who's like, oh, deadlifts are dangerous, that like the risk to reward ratio, I don't want to hurt my back and stuff like that, which is fair enough. Not that I think deadlifts are dangerous, but let's ease you into it a bit more slowly. So you could add these in once a week. You could do them for 3 sets of like 8 to 10 reps at about an RPE 6, so nice and easy. It will be a nice way to just kind of ease you into deadlifting. Once you get stronger at them and you've ran them for a few blocks, you got stronger at them, you feel a bit more confident, then maybe you can do them alongside like a Romanian deadlift or something. So once a week Camperini deadlift, once a week RDL, and then slowly over time you can replace the Camperini with like a normal deadlift. The RDL gets replaced by something a bit heavier, and you slowly work your way up like that. So those are my top 5 deadlift accessories, and those are the ones I've seen most benefit with myself and with my clients. They've helped me get to a 300 kilo deadlift. Again, if you'd like to see some specific examples of training programs that actually program the deadlift more intelligently than you're doing now, top link in the description. There's loads of training programs there, 60 weeks of training for you to follow. If you're still a bit confused about like how to set your training program up, I've got a video right here that gives you a free training program and instructs you like how to set it up and stuff like that. If you have any questions, comments and things like that, post them in the comment section down below. And until then, I'll catch you in the next video.